Mark Reynolds looked calm and collected, just like any devoted father. But when his 2-year-old son, Liam, was found dead, the town saw a shocking truth: a father who could kill his own child without showing a single emotion. Willow Creek was a small, quiet town where everyone knew each other. The streets were lined with neat houses, and children played safely outside. Among these homes lived Mark Reynolds, a 32-year-old man who seemed ordinary and polite. He worked as an accountant, a job that required focus and precision. To the neighbors, he seemed like a good father. His 2-year-old son, Liam, was always with him. People often saw them walking together or playing in the backyard. From the outside, Mark's life looked stable, but inside, there were problems that no one could see. One chilly morning in early November, Mark left his house in a hurry. He carried a small bag, his face blank and eyes staring straight ahead. To anyone watching, he looked like a man going to work or running an errand. But inside the house, tension had been building for weeks. Bills were piling up, and Mark's job was uncertain. Yet money problems alone could not explain the darkness growing in his mind. A few hours later, paramedics were called to the Reynolds home. Liam was found unresponsive in his crib. The paramedics tried to save him, but it was too late. News spread quickly through Willow Creek. Everyone was shocked. But what made the tragedy even more disturbing was Mark's reaction. He showed no emotion, no tears, no screaming, no panic. He stood beside the paramedics perfectly still. Police later said his calmness was almost mechanical, completely unusual for a parent. The town could not understand it. How could a father look at his dead child and not react? Whispers of fear and disbelief spread through cafes and playgrounds. Detectives said such detachment was very rare, even for criminals. For the people of Willow Creek, a frightening truth became clear. The man they thought they knew, the kind father, polite neighbor, ordinary man, was capable of something terrible. Behind closed doors, questions remained. Was this a sudden act of madness? Or had something more sinister been growing quietly for weeks? Detectives began investigating the Reynolds home. Every room was searched carefully. The living room looked normal, with toys scattered on the carpet and a blanket on the couch. But in the kitchen, they found overdue bills and notices hidden in a drawer, showing Mark's financial stress. While money problems were real, investigators knew they could not explain the cold, calculated way Liam had died. When they checked Mark's computer, they found dark and disturbing searches. He had looked up ways to suffocate a toddler. Experts said this showed planning and detachment from reality. Mark had spent hours researching, almost like it was a task, not an emotional act. Neighbors and friends were shocked. Mark was always quiet and distant, but no one imagined he could be this detached. People remembered small incidents that seemed normal at the time: a tense moment at a birthday, a brief argument in a store, but now they looked like warning signs. Psychologists said some people can hide their emotions and act normally while secretly having dangerous impulses. Investigators started looking at Mark Reynolds' daily routine in the weeks before the tragedy. He seemed to follow his usual schedule, going to work and taking care of small parenting duties. But there were gaps, times when no one knew where he was or what he was doing. Security cameras from nearby streets and stores showed a man moving carefully, focused on tasks that later seemed strange and mysterious. Every new discovery made the mystery worse. The careful research, the planning, and the calm, emotionless way he acted all led to one shocking conclusion: Liam's death was not an accident. It was a deliberate act, carried out by a father who, for reasons no one could fully understand, showed no emotion at all. Willow Creek was left with a haunting question: how could someone so close, so ordinary, do something so terrible and remain completely detached? The autopsy report confirmed the investigators' fears. Liam had died from suffocation. There were no injuries that suggested he had tried to fight back. He had been completely surprised. The precise way he was killed made the crime even more disturbing. Forensic experts said that it required both physical control and an emotional detachment most parents could never have. As the investigation continued, a dark picture of Mark began to appear. Family and friends said he had always been emotionally distant, rarely showing affection, even in small, everyday ways. Colleagues said he was careful and polite, but cold, someone who lived life like a machine, with little empathy. Many people thought his behavior was just quiet or introverted, but the evidence showed something far worse. The ordinary mask he wore had hidden a darkness no one could imagine. Social media added another layer. Pictures of smiling family moments and happy outings made it seem like everything was perfect. To the community, Mark seemed like a loving father with a stable family life. But behind these posts, the reality was much darker. The images were a carefully built image meant to hide the truth. Psychologists said Mark's emotional detachment might be linked to sociopathy, a condition where people can commit extreme acts without feeling guilt. They noted how he carefully planned Liam's death, researched it online, and stayed calm afterward. These traits showed a man who acted on logic and control, not emotion, a dangerous combination with a vulnerable child. The more detectives learned, the clearer it became that Liam's death was a planned act hidden behind an ordinary life. Willow Creek struggled to understand it. How could a man so close and normal-looking hide such darkness? The truth was frightening. Evil doesn't always show warning signs, and sometimes the worst crimes are done by people who seem least capable. The town was left shocked, questioning the people around them and what might be hidden behind closed doors. As the trial approached, Willow Creek prepared for a legal battle that would reveal the darkest parts of a father's mind. Prosecutors presented a clear case. Mark had planned every detail of Liam's death, from researching methods online to carrying it out with precision. The courtroom became a place where normal life and horror collided. Experts explained Mark's strange calmness. Psychologists said some people can separate emotions from actions, a trait seen in sociopathy. They described his careful planning, lack of remorse, and calmness after the crime. The jury listened closely, trying to understand a behavior most people could hardly imagine. The case took an unexpected turn when investigators uncovered additional evidence from the night before Liam's death. A neighbor came forward with a detail that had previously gone unnoticed. Mark had been observed on the phone, speaking in a tense, hurried manner, though no one could discern to whom. While the content of the call remained unknown, detectives speculated that external pressures or influences could have played a role in pushing him toward the fatal act. This revelation complicated the narrative, introducing the possibility that Liam's death might not have been entirely the product of internal planning, but also influenced by unseen factors or threats. Media attention intensified, and the story drew national coverage. Journalists described Mark as a man whose face revealed no hint of guilt, a father whose calculated cruelty baffled experts and horrified the public. Social media debates raged, with people struggling to reconcile the loving images of Liam and his father with the stark reality of his death. The town's collective psyche was shaken. Neighbors questioned whether they had truly known Mark at all. Throughout the trial, Mark maintained his composure, never flinching as the evidence mounted. Each revelation, each expert testimony, added layers of tension to an already suspenseful case. The courtroom became a battleground not only for justice but for understanding, an attempt to grasp how a human mind could commit such an act without the emotional turmoil that would accompany most crimes. As the trial continued, it became increasingly clear that this story was more than a crime. It was an unsettling study in control, deception, and the dangerous depths that can lie beneath a seemingly ordinary life. The day of the verdict arrived, and Willow Creek seemed to hold its collective breath. The courtroom was tense, every eye fixed on Mark Reynolds as the jury filed back in after days of deliberation. Outside, the town waited, anxious and unsettled, grappling with the tragedy that had shattered their sense of safety. Inside, the trial had exposed not only the methodical planning behind Liam's death but also the chilling emotional detachment of the man who had taken his life. Experts had testified, neighbors had spoken, and evidence had been presented in painstaking detail. Now it was time for the final judgment. The jury returned with a unanimous decision: guilty of first-degree murder. The sentence was severe, reflecting the cold, calculated nature of the crime. Mark Reynolds remained composed as the verdict was read, showing no sign of remorse or acknowledgement of the destruction he had caused. His calmness, which had unnerved the town from the beginning, persisted even in the moment of legal reckoning. Psychologists later explained that such detachment could be a hallmark of severe emotional dysfunction, but for the residents of Willow Creek, the sight was incomprehensible. Outside the courthouse, the town struggled to process the reality of what had happened. Liam's death had left a void that could never be filled, and the eerie calm of his father in the face of tragedy only deepened the horror. Families whispered to each other about the hidden dangers that might exist behind closed doors, and the sense of security that had once defined Willow Creek was gone. People began to realize that appearances could be deceiving, that a smiling neighbor or friendly colleague might conceal motives and thoughts no one could ever suspect. In the aftermath, investigators reflected on the complexity of the case. They had uncovered a portrait of a man who operated on control and logic rather than empathy. Someone capable of committing a brutal act while maintaining an outwardly ordinary life. The trial had revealed a disturbing reality. Evil does not always announce itself. Some of the most horrific crimes are executed by those who appear normal, blending seamlessly into their communities while harboring unimaginable darkness. Liam's story became a cautionary tale, a haunting reminder that the ordinary can sometimes conceal the extraordinary and the horrifying. The town of Willow Creek would never forget the tragedy, nor the unsettling calm of the father who had committed it. Even after justice was served, questions lingered, echoing through the streets and homes. How could someone so close, so seemingly ordinary, commit such an unthinkable act? And more chillingly, how many others hide darkness behind the familiar faces in their own communities?